Hello, Arkansas, and welcome to this week's edition of Arkansas Money Talk, brought to you by the team of Retire Path Wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is the president, Dale Colclasure, and co-founder, Mark Smalling. We have a very important show for you today. The title of this episode is When Two Become One: How to Protect Your Spouse from the Widow's Tax Trap. This is something that doesn't get talked about enough. It's something that a lot of folks have questions and concerns about, so we want to address it today, and we are so glad that you're joining us. Dale, Mark, so good to be here with both of you. Yep. How are you this week?
Wonderful. Love to talk about a topic that nobody ever wants to address.
I know, right?
Yeah, and we see it quite often.
I know you do, and I'm excited for you to be able to really bring this conversation to life with some of those real stories, because I think that that can really help folks understand why this is so important, right, and why it needs to be talked about more, right?
Yes.
Well, again, the title of the show, When Two Become One, typically when folks hear that, they think about getting married, and rightly so. But unfortunately, there is another time in life when two become one, because typically both spouses don't pass away at the exact same time. And even though losing a spouse is emotionally devastating enough, the grief alone we have such compassion for, the problem we want to address today is so many folks are completely unprepared for the financial devastation that can occur if the proper planning isn't done on the front end. So we want today to be very enlightening, but also very empowering for those of you who are currently married, of what you can do now to get in front of this problem so that you can protect your spouse from what's known as the widow's tax trap. So let's just start with that. First of all, what is this widow's tax trap, and why is it such a big issue for retirees?
Well, it's a big issue. For the very first thing happens when a spouse passes away. We go from married filing jointly to a single taxpayer. Mm-hmm. So we've our standard deductions have been cut in half, and the actual tax rates that we're paying are different. I mean, there's a much broader tax rate base, with that when we're filing as married filing jointly as opposed to a single taxpayer. And then we also have a Social Security benefit that goes from 2 Social Security benefits down to 1. Now it's the larger of the two, but in some situations, some people's actual income stays the same, mm-hmm, or pretty close to the same.
Right.
And so their income staying the same, their tax brackets have shrunk. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to end up paying an effective tax rate that's much higher than what they were paying before. So it's going to increase all of that. And this isn't gender specific. This happens, yes, to males and females both. Mm-hmm. I mean, and so it does. It creates a lot more taxes, and people aren't aware of that.
For sure. And I want to clarify something, because I was actually having this conversation with my own parents not that long ago and trying to help them understand, because it sounds good when you say, oh, your tax bracket will be cut in half as a single taxpayer. No, let's explain this, right? So your income stays the same, like you were saying, Mark, right? But now that amount of income is going to be taxed at a higher rate, because the threshold, the range, if you will,
yes,
is what gets cut in half. And so more of your hard-earned money could be subjected to taxation. And that's what this whole show is about, is to help you avoid unnecessary taxes, income loss, and that financial stress on top of the grief. And yes, it does affect both men and women, right? It depends, yes, on who passes away first. But I will say too, as a woman, this is something I'm very passionate about, because on average, women are outliving men by 5 to 6 mm-hmm. years. And so typically this is often the woman who is dealing with this stress. But as you well pointed out, it could be either spouse, depending on what happens. So why is it so important for couples to think about this now? Why is it important for them to have the conversation and plan for survivorship before this day occurs?
I'm going to say the most important reason is because every time there's a couple situation, in most of those scenarios, there is one person who is generally responsible for the income, that's generally responsible for the spending, generally responsible, to make sure there's income coming in, the bills get paid. I'm not saying, and again, that one's also not gender specific, but the reality is there's probably one spouse that has less comprehension to how this process actually works. And so the idea is we get all the time says, oh, well, I let him take care of it, or I let her take care of it. Well, the reality is at some point you may be the one taking care of it regardless. And if you're literally trying to protect your spouse and all the assets that you put in place, and let's even look past the spouse. Let's say we're trying to protect the kids and the offspring that come after that as well, is that we want to have a plan in place so that when that person is grieving, they are not then forced to be able to have to make poor decisions afterwards, or to just simply forget about things that are important. Because when we have a plan in place, there's less thought that has to go into right now for what I need to do, because I already have a comprehension, have a real life scenario of one of these that just simply occurred. We get notified that the spouse has passed away, almost not anticipated in this particular case. But kind of one of the last statements that I just simply made is, hey, just remember whenever you're ready to have the discussion, we need to plan to get more money out of the IRAs this year. Again, maybe it's Roth conversion, maybe it's not, but the fact is that I have a more expansive bracket, so I've got access to more money for the last time.
Yes, and that's crucial, right? And this is why having that plan before that day comes, then, because you were saying too, like it doesn't matter if the spouse passes away at the end of the year.
Oh, if it happens December 30th, I mean, we got very little time
Correct.
to get things put in place.
Yeah,
It's almost impossible to do it at that point.
Exactly, and that's just, I've known situations where that's occurred. So that's why the sooner you start planning, the sooner you have this conversation, then you don't have to worry about it anymore, right?
We have contingencies. We plan for the best.
Yep.
And then we know what contingencies can arise because we have these discussions on a regular basis as we're updating our scenario, as we do our income tax planning at the beginning of each year.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I can hear probably some folks watching going, oh, you know what? I've got this covered because I have a will. I've done my estate planning, which if you've done that, that's great. That's fabulous. You need that. But what would you say to someone who's thinking, oh yeah, I've done that. I don't need to worry about what we're talking about today?
Right. Well, estate planning is not survivor planning. So, I mean, survivor planning takes into account income, taxes, health care, and your legacy. And survivor planning is about living financial planning. Because this is not end of life planning. That's mainly what your will and trust are for. But having living wills in place and having financial and healthcare powers of attorney in place are extremely important, because we need to do that while we're still healthy. We don't need to wait until we're not healthy enough or have the capacity to actually make those decisions and put those into place. So we need to make sure that we are planning ahead.
Yes.
Now, let's don't get too far ahead of that either, Kristen, because many times it may be the spouse that passes away is the one that still has the most competency left. If I have a spouse who is already in some type of a long-term care position and they're the one that's left, this can be extremely devastating, because if I don't have the proper documents in place, if I don't have power of attorneys that are there, so let's don't breeze past that. This is not a one and only scenario, it's a one and both. Again, back to why we all need a written income plan, okay? So let's get that taken care of. But the reality is we don't know which spouse is going to go. It's not always the one that's the least healthy that passes first.
No, it's so true. And I want to call out for our viewers, you might have seen this website that's there for you on the bottom of your screen. We call it our tax bill calculator. RetirePathTaxTest.com is how you can access it, or you can scan that QR code. What this will do is give you a good idea of how much tax you could be susceptible to paying over the rest of your life. But one of the things that this tool can do, and it's completely free for you to use, you can actually select for the household. So you could select for, the two people in a spousal relationship, or you can check it as a single household. Do both. Go to that site, do both, right? Because then you'll be able to see the difference of, okay, I'm in a higher, tax bracket now that I'm single. How much more could I be subjected to taxation? And don't worry, we don't leave you there. We also provide solutions on how to help you pay the least amount of taxes possible. But talk about how that tool specifically fits into today's conversation.
Now, that's a beautiful segue there, Kristen. It's the idea that we always want to plan for the best outcome, okay? Because we've got to do that. But the reality is none of us are promised tomorrow. And so we want to look at both situations so you have a real sense of what outcomes can possibly be. So if you're out there today and you're 60 or around 60 years old and you're looking at the edge of retirement, of moving into that spot, especially if we don't have a legacy plan in place, we don't have some type of income tax plan in place, hey, let's get together today. Let's scan the QR code, go to the website, call the phone number, whatever you've got to do to get in contact with our team at RetirePath. We've got an entire team that's built on specializing, helping people understand how to navigate these issues, how to deal with them. If you've just been widowed and you've stepped into this spot, I know how devastating it can be, but the reality is let's move forward and make sure we make great decisions moving forward to protect yourself if you haven't done it. Let's get a written income plan put in place for you. But let's don't hesitate. Let's start today and get the process started.
Wonderful. Yep. Dale, Mark, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call to start your path with RetirePath Wealth is there for you on the bottom of your screen, 866-724-3893. Again, this is for no cost, no charge, and no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how they can help and serve you. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to address what if you already are a widow or a widower and continue this important conversation on how you can be protected from the widow's tax trap. Stay with us.
We got to know where we're headed to. So I always call it a target that we're shooting for. Critical pieces of that is at what age do you want to start looking at retirement becoming a reality? And then simply what do we need for income to continue to live the standard of living that we're either accustomed to or that we want to have at that point? It looks like having a written income plan in place so that you know over the next 20 to 30 to 35, however long that time frame is that you have a sense of security of knowing that you're not going to run out of money. The idea is I like to be as tax efficient as possible, but we're going to be very proactive and futuristic, proactive tax planning. And then once we put that written income plan in place and they can look down to the end and there's still positive numbers left, at the end of that calculation, that's the most rewarding part of it because you're going to retire once.
Did you ever think your own retirement would be shared with our government? It's true. Your 401k, IRA, pension, and other similar retirement accounts are in partnership with Uncle Sam. Simply put, they want their tax dollars and you have them. With our latest tax calculator, you can plug in your own numbers while sitting at home to see what your tax liability to Uncle Sam will be. Now scan the QR code or go to retirepathtaxtest.com.
Welcome back, Arkansas. You're watching Arkansas Money Talk. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Dale and Mark from RetirePath Wealth, and we are so glad that you're spending this time with us today. If you're just tuning in, we are having a very important and heartfelt conversation, all centered around when two become one, meaning what happens when one spouse passes away and how can you ensure that you are protecting the surviving spouse from what's known as the widow's tax trap. If you are just joining us, we've also shared with you our tax bill calculator, which you can access by going to retirepathtaxtest.com or by scanning that QR code. Again, just to get a sense of what that potential tax bill might be. But here's the good news. You don't have to settle for the government's plan for you. There is a better way. And that's why we wanted to talk about this today, getting in front of it, helping folks before that day comes. But that being said, I know you also meet and work with a lot of folks who are already widows and widowers. And I've heard you say that that's one of the most underserved populations when it comes to financial planning and retirement planning. So explain what you've observed and what you and the team of RetirePath Wealth do specifically to help this underserved population.
Where I'd like to start is with someone who called in from TV.
Okay.
She's been watching for a while. Because her spouse had passed away. Now, this has happened a number of years ago, so it's not just a current or a recent occurrence.
Right.
They had planned very, very well. They had trust set up. A lot of planning had been done. She has more than enough income to cover herself. But the challenge is now her goals have changed. But she thought she had a financial advisor. What we've come to find out, the reality is probably what she really has is a broker. So she wasn't getting proactive advice on the second end She's having this conversation of, I have plenty of adequate income. I'm really trying to leave this money to the next generation. But this particular individual that she's working with had money just simply sitting in cash. It wasn't earning anything for not just for her, but for her next generation, which was what really her concern was, because she and her husband had planned very well for themselves. And so I think many times that widow gets overlooked for what their concerns, maybe even possibly what their intelligence is. And as they're telling the financial professional that they're working with what they're trying to accomplish, I think sometimes they don't listen and they take a lot of other things into consideration, like the money's being managed as if it all has to be spent next year. And the reality is she's already told them she doesn't need it. So we have this large IRA account that's sitting over here that really probably needs to continue to be depleted because she has room in her tax bracket to do that efficiently, but they also have a large amount of non-qualified assets that now they've put in CDs that are generating about another $80,000 a year of taxable income for her that's filling up her tax bucket. And so there was no real strategic thought process as to how to access the assets for not only for her efficient tax situation today, but for the efficient passage of those assets moving forward. So I think one of the biggest issues that comes into that situation is, oh, you had this plan in place. Mark refers to this all the time as the set it and forget it. And I think that's exactly what happened to her.
Right.
And she just knew, she had this sense that she wasn't being properly served. So again, we have the instance of another person who's watched the show, realized I probably don't have the appropriate advisor for the rest of my life. I need to go get a second opinion. And I think we found a better plan for her to put in place. And I think she's going to have a much better outcome as well as her family.
I'm so grateful that she got connected with you all. It just shows the power of this show too, right? I mean, it's been such a joy. I can't believe it's been almost 3 years we've been doing it. And how many wonderful folks you've been able to connect with throughout the great state of Arkansas and really help and serve in their time of need.
Right.
So yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
because so many people just feel stuck where they are.
Yes.
Yep, correct. Well, again, if you're just joining us, this whole concept of when two become one, there's a lot of things that happen when one spouse passes away. And so household income can change, your taxes change dramatically, often in ways that folks are just completely unaware of and unprepared for. So again, let's just kind of refresh for folks. What are some of the most common income changes after a spouse passes away?
Sure. So, I mean, you go from 2 Social Security benefits down to 1, so you're going to lose the smaller of the 2 benefits. And then if there was a pension in play, it depends on whether or not there were survivor benefit chosen or available to you, or whether there's a reduced amount because of the survivor benefits. So that could be, cut, for you, depending on the situation. And then we also have, we still have the same RMDs that are coming out. We may have similar income, but we've got smaller brackets to work with, so our taxes are going to be higher. And then we could end up with income-related monthly adjustment amounts on our Medicare, because now we have basically the same income, but we have half the thresholds to get us to those IRMAA thresholds as a single taxpayer. So we can end up paying more on our Medicare premiums, and that's shocking for people when that happens. People get those letters and they've never seen them before because they were working well below those thresholds
and they're completely
before.
blindsided by
Completely blindsided.
Right.
Well, not only that, something else that occurs that nobody ever anticipates: death benefit from life insurance, because it's income tax-free upon the recipient.
Right.
But then the moment they do something with it, it can now become taxable and exacerbate the situation. So I've seen it so many times where somebody just takes it and goes, oh, just put that in something, because I don't know what to do with it.
Right.
But if we already have a plan in place for what those assets should be utilized towards, maybe those need to just go ahead and pass on to the next generation, or they need to go to the grandkids, or they need to be gifted. We need to have those conversations in advance, because the other thing that we also find very, very common that occurs with the receipt of life insurance benefit is guilt and how it's used. I hear it all the time. It says, oh no, this needs to be done for a particular purpose. And so I think you should have that conversation in advance for what those benefits should really be used for.
No, absolutely. Well, as we wrap up this segment, explain what you're able to do through building a complementary written income plan. When you're building income plans for folks, how do you help couples create one that prepares for everything we're talking about today?
Well, I think the beauty of seeing it on paper, of knowing what the actual reality of Here's what assets levels look like. Here's what income has the ability to look like. Here's the fact that it's going to continue and it's going to continue to grow. So the first thing it does is it gives you a sense of surety in your situation. What that then can do is help us to make better decisions, because especially if we have excess assets, those are really the folks that this is really designed to help for these advanced conversations that we're having. Or maybe it's the other side. Maybe the idea is that we just barely generate enough income to get us to where we want to be. And so one of the decisions we can make now is maybe I need more guaranteed income for the surviving spouse if something happens. The only thing that is now we change what investment products we look at. And so there's some things that are designed to generate more income. There's some things that are designed to generate more growth. Neither one are bad or good. It's depending on what your situation, what your need is. And like we often say, we're not going to take any investment option off the table if it's suitable for someone's situation. And as a fiduciary, we're always going to give you what the positives and the negatives are so you can make the best choice for your outcome. So I'm going to encourage you to scan that today. Let's get into the process to getting your written income plan put in place, and let's move forward to a brighter future.
Wonderful. Dale, Mark, thank you so much. That number to call to start your process is there for you on the bottom of your screen, 866-724-3893. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to talk a little more specifically about survivor benefits with Social Security, as well as other things you want to take into consideration when two become one with your taxes, healthcare, and legacy. Stay with us.
A retirement income planner isn't just a professional resource. They are your advocate, your strategist, and your guide on a journey to a successful retirement. At RetirePath Wealth, we work with families just like yours to customize strategies based on your unique goals, your risk tolerance, and your life stage to ensure your retirement plan aligns with your aspirations. Hi, I'm Dale Callclaser, Certified Financial Planner. If you are searching for a fulfilling retirement and confidence in your financial future, give us a call and learn more about how we can help.
Welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk, where today we are having a very important conversation on what happens when one spouse passes away and why it's so important to plan long before that day comes so that you can help protect the surviving spouse from what's known as the widow's tax trap. And if that's something that you are curious about, if you want to play around and see what potential tax situations could be like for yourself, we do encourage you to visit our tax bill calculator. It's completely free to use, retirepathtaxtest.com. Now, survivor benefits for Social Security. This is something that really sets you all apart, is that you engage in Social Security planning as part of your process with clients. So Mark, because you're the Social Security specialist, I'd love for you to speak a little bit more about survivor benefits, because there's a lot of confusion out there. And really, this is a conversation that needs to happen ideally before someone even selects their claiming strategy. So explain that.
That's exactly right. So survivor benefits, a lot of people don't realize that they can actually start collecting their survivor benefits before they would be able to on their own retirement benefits with Social Security.
If they're already a widow or widower.
If you're already a widow or widower.
Yeah.
So it can be as early as 50 if you're disabled, 60 if you're not, and you can actually go on survivor benefits even if you have your own retirement benefits and defer those until and let those grow. And in a lot of situations, if both spouses have worked, that actually works out to be more money in your pocket over the long run by selecting the survivor benefit in the beginning and then switching to yours later on. And you can defer those all the way out to age 70 and get considerable considerable increases just by deferring your Social Security benefit for that long and earn delay retirement credits. And those are some of your most cost-efficient dollars because they're never 100% taxable, only mostly at the very most 85% taxable and in the state of Arkansas, they're not taxed at all.
Right. So important strategies to
They
think
are.
through based on your situation. Absolutely. And also for married couples who are still married and looking at the Social Security decision, figuring out how one spouse is going to claim can have an impact on the other, because once one spouse passes away, as we've already said, you're going to lose one of the two checks, but you do get to keep the higher of the two. So,
Right, and that's why we oftentimes don't recommend people collect at the same time, that we actually, stagger those
Yep.
in order to get the most out of their Social Security benefits.
for sure.
But also, it's always custom.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's what makes the most sense in their situation.
Correct. It's no one size fits all, for sure.
And there's no way of looking at it until you know what income looks like.
Nope, absolutely. Well, I know another thing we want to touch on is the healthcare and long-term care piece of this, because typically if one spouse is outliving the other, they might need some type of long-term care. So talk about planning for that.
You know, there's lots of ways to plan for those situations. Obviously, we can self-insure if we have enough assets. But maybe if I have plenty of assets, one of the things I want to do is pass those on. I don't want to see myself having to spend those. So just know there are options out there with the traditional long-term care that have become a little more affordable these days than what they have been in the past. So if all you've always ever heard is, oh gosh, I can't afford that, the other scenario is maybe we don't need it necessarily on both spouses. If there's an age disparity, maybe there's different considerations for how that, if there's concern that goes on. Here's the other thing that I'll also point out to you, and I'm talking especially to you husbands out there. If your wife has addressed to you that long-term care is an issue, what she's really saying is that she's worried about having to take care of you, not put coverage on herself, okay, in most of those cases. So please, even though you may blow that issue off, listen to what she's saying, because her concerns are valid at some point, because you may not be there. You may be the one that care is needing to be given to, and she's trying to figure out how to take care of that for you. The other option is there are hybrid products. There's a lot of options available today from different carriers where we can put dual coverage on one particular policy, which can make things less expensive. There's life insurance options. There's annuity-based products that are all hybrid where we don't even have to go through underwriting. Maybe you've been told in the past you can't qualify for long-term care because of some health issue that you've had in the past. The other is there's a lot of guaranteed income products out there today that provide lifetime income for a single person. Even on an IRA account, we can use those for joint life calculations, so it provides income into perpetuity for both spouses. There are a number of products as well that will have a doubler if activities of daily living or cognitive impairment come into place. So here's what I'll tell you. If any of these are your concerns, if we're planning on how to pay for the future, please don't think you know everything, because I promise you've not seen it all until you've talked to us.
Yeah, for sure. Dale and Mark, thank you for being willing to have this important conversation and shedding light on a subject that we know is so important to be planning for. And the sooner you start, the easier and the less stressful it can be. 866-724-3893 is the number to call to start your process and receive your complimentary written income plan today. We love you, Arkansas. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time here on Arkansas Money Talk.